Thank you so much for joining us for CBN NewsWatch. I'm Efrem Graham. Ahead today, Iran giving its response to President Donald Trump's warning: get involved in international talks over your nuclear program or face the possibility of a military strike. The president's warning coming as the International Atomic Energy Agency warns the time for diplomacy is running out. Israelis in the northern part of their country finally able to return home after facing barrages of rocket attacks by Hezbollah during the war. And many are hoping to start rebuilding their region, while others aren't sure yet if it's safe for them to go home. It sounds like something out of the classic novel 1984. A British man convicted of a thought crime because he was praying too close to an abortion clinic. We're going to bring you the story from England. And we're going to hear from a woman who's helping others recover from alcohol and drugs after the Lord helped her to recover following an abusive marriage and homelessness with their small children, 3 of them. All those stories and more right now on CBN NewsWatch.
This is CBN NewsWatch.
It is Tuesday. Going to begin this half hour with Iran's reaction to a warning from President Donald Trump: negotiate or face military action. That is the president's message as he says the Iranian regime cannot be allowed to have a nuclear weapon. CBN's national security correspondent Caitlin Burke brings us this look at Iran's mixed response.
President Trump said last week that he'd written Iran's Ayatollah Khamenei urging negotiations on a new nuclear deal with Washington. Saturday, Khamenei initially rejected the offer, claiming Trump would just be looking to exert dominance and impose new demands. Now the regime says talks are back on the table. Iran's foreign ministry spokesman maintains a letter from President Trump never made it to leadership. He adds that negotiations will be considered as long as talks stick to concerns about the militarization of its nuclear program. While Iran's messaging appears unclear, in an interview with Fox News, President Trump says the regime is running out of time.
The time is happening now. The time is coming up. Something's going to happen one way or the other.
Former State Department advisor Gabriel Nerona, now with Polaris National Security, says the regime isn't in a position to ignore the offer of diplomacy.
Their proxies in Iraq are starting to show signs of weakening. Syria is gone. Hezbollah is decimated. Hamas is decimated, and they have the Houthis left as now their strongest proxy. This is not an Iran that is able to carry out the massive destructive threats against Israel and the United States that there were when President Trump was in office the first time.
Nerona says military action could make things tenuous for Iran because the regime doesn't have much else to lose.
I think what the regime fears the most is that the regime, without that nuclear safety net, would be on the verge of collapse. And that if the Israel and the United States are striking its programs, that the Iranian people would rise up. And so they're going to be prepared to do absolutely anything in their power to respond in the event of an attack.
According to the latest report from the International Atomic Energy Agency, Iran's enriched uranium is up to 60% purity near weapons grade, and it could have enough for as many as 6 bombs. The agency now warns the situation is of serious concern and time for diplomacy is running out.
President Trump, as well as all of his predecessors, have said they will not permit Iran to get a nuclear weapon. Iran is on the threshold now, really on the threshold of a nuclear weapon. And so the implicit threat is that military force is the alternative if Iran is not willing to come to the table and resolve this peacefully.
Iran, China, and Russia kicked off annual joint military exercises Monday in the Gulf of Oman. Despite this growing partnership, Nerona says while it's something to watch, he doesn't believe China and Russia would provide much support if the U.S. takes military action on Iran. Caitlin Burke, CBN News, Washington.
I want to turn now to the situation in northern Israel. After the warfare with Hezbollah, thousands of Israelis who were chased from their northern border homes can now finally return. Even after months of rocket attacks, some families are eager to rebuild, while others still are not sure. CBN's Chuck Holton traveled to the north to see how the recovery is unfolding.
The last time our CBN News crew visited Kiryat Shimona in Israel's north, it was a virtual ghost town. And rocket attacks from Hezbollah were an everyday reality.
Fine line between brave and stupid. Here we go again. Here we go again. Get down, get down.
Now, with 2 months of relative peace, more than 60,000 Israelis displaced from their homes are able to return. Life, though, is far from normal as businesses struggle to reopen with only a fraction of residents back home.
We had to evacuate from Bet Hillel. We couldn't stay here. The army asked us to leave Bet Hillel because they're afraid from the bombs.
Hope is budding along with spring, although there are still concerns things may never be the same.
In the first week, I couldn't stop crying all the time. Until the hostages come home, our joy will not complete.
This farm outside Kiryat Shimona, just a few miles from the Lebanese border, is known for these beautiful oranges and the pecans that they grow here. But right now, they're having a hard time finding anybody to come and help them harvest these things. These trees are full of fruit right now, but the foreign-born workers that usually come from Thailand and elsewhere to help them, many of those guys have already moved on to other jobs. And so they are hoping that they can get people to come back and help them get their fruit to market. Now the family's working to rebuild and welcome guests again.
We cleaned everything and start to plant everything, renew everything, and now people start to come back.
For those who have returned, hope remains their region can be rebuilt and return to normal.
To see people come here is amazing. Come back, to see everything come to life again, it's amazing. Sometimes I just stare and speechless of what's happening here.
I'm at the extreme northern border of Israel, just north of the town of Metula, which has been a ghost town for the last 15 months. But now people are starting to come back because if you see that fence right there, that's the border. Just the other side of that is a village inside Lebanon where Hezbollah was firing rockets on a daily basis in here. But that village is nothing but rubble now. And for that reason, the people feel safer coming back home.
While the war, we were open. Meanwhile, all the Kiryat Shimona was evacuated. We basically was the one business that working. We give serve to the police, the military, the soldiers.
This shawarma shop in the center of town was the only restaurant to stay open for the entire war.
Maybe 30% of Kiryat Shimona community has come back because the evacuation has been longer. So some people has stayed in the hotels, and I hope everyone will come back soon.
Even those who have realized the war is not over.
I cannot tell you the feeling. Now I'm talking with you and I'm starting to cry because I think about all the people they cannot come back, and about the families and the babies that murdered there. And I love Israel very, very much. I don't want to leave Israel.
From northern Israel, I'm Chuck Holton for CBN News.
Coming up, we're going to introduce you to the first British citizen convicted of a thought crime. Army veteran Adam Smith-Connor talks about the dream that took him to an abortion clinic and the prayer that led to his arrest and conviction. We're going to hear from him when we come back.
Introducing a brand new way to start your morning. Get your daily quick start from CBN News. A quick read on the important news of the day delivered right to your inbox. Stay current on breaking news, politics, and entertainment. Discover how God is moving around the world and here at home. Plus, get exclusive stories and daily scripture encouragement just for you. Stay informed. Go to quickstart.news and subscribe today.
Imagine not only being arrested for praying, but for the contents of your prayer. In Britain, that can happen if you're too close to an abortion clinic. And in Scotland, people living near abortion clinics could even be charged for activities inside their homes. Joe Hurd reports on the first UK citizen convicted of a thought crime.
While many knew about the case against a British Army veteran, Vice President J.D. Vance brought it to the world's attention again in a speech to the Munich Security Conference.
A little over 2 years ago, the British government charged Adam Smith Connor, a 51-year-old physiotherapist and an Army veteran, with the heinous crime of standing 50 meters from an abortion clinic and silently praying for 3 minutes. Not obstructing anyone, not interacting with anyone, just silently praying on his own.
When Adam Smith Connor was approached by police officers, they asked, "What is the nature of your prayer today?"
What is the nature of that? I'm praying for my son.
Making the charge against him what many are calling a thought crime. We met Smith Connor at a church in Southampton, England, where he told us of a terrible dream that led him into the pro-life movement, a dream in which he was butchering a baby.
I was carving up this baby as if I was carving up the Sunday roast. I didn't have any sense of guilt or anything. It was no feeling of anything as I was doing this. When I woke up, it was like a nightmare in reverse. So what horrified me was that I'd carved up this child who I knew it was my son, and it horrified me that I hadn't felt anything as I did it. And over the following days, I came to realize it related to an abortion that I'd paid for 2 decades earlier. That abortion hadn't even crossed my mind, but God knew that that was sitting on my conscience and knew that I wasn't going to figure it out for myself, that needed to be cleansed. So I feel that he gave me that vision, that dream, to wake me up to what had happened.
Adam began to go to abortion clinics to pray for his son and would eventually be charged for it.
They asked me to leave the area. I declined because I don't think that prayer can ever be considered a criminal act or illegal. I was out of line of sight from the clinic behind a tree, and I didn't look at anyone, I didn't approach anyone, I didn't speak to anyone.
The United Kingdom's new buffer zone law makes it illegal for anyone to do anything that intentionally or recklessly influences someone's decision to use abortion services. The law will apply within a 150-meter radius of the abortion service provider.
By using a word like influence, it's very unclear what the law means.
Lois McClatchy Miller with Alliance Defending Freedom International says the government's use of the word influence has created a very broad law that could potentially be used against private conversations, as well as a person's thoughts and prayers.
But what about a mother asking her daughter, "Are you sure?" Is that influence? What about a friend who's offering support to a woman who's considering continuing her pregnancy? Is that influence?
A 63-year-old retired medical scientist from Bournemouth, England, was also put on trial for standing near an abortion clinic and holding up a sign reading, "Here to talk if you want," and talking to women who approached her.
So what are you up to today, sorry?
I'm praying.
You're praying?
Yes.
Okay.
In Scotland, this letter sent to citizens warns that anyone living within an abortion clinic buffer zone could violate the law while inside their own homes. Some think it could include praying near a window if a woman seeking an abortion walks by. Smith Connor said he's grateful Vice President Vance defended him before world leaders. Adam Smith Connor is a British Army vet who risked his life in Afghanistan for the cause of freedom, only to return home to be convicted of a thought crime. Smith Connor said he thinks about the personal price he paid and how a close friend gave his life to protect the very rights that now have been taken away by his government.
I've got a profound sense of sadness for our nation. The fact that we have plummeted to such a depth so quickly. I believe in the Bible and what the Bible says, and I lived that out in my life, and the fact that I'm now convicted for doing that, I think, is quite shocking. And the absurdity of a trial for the contents of your mind, the contents of your prayers, just has no place in a liberal, free, democratic society, and yet here we are.
An appeal of Adam's conviction has been set for July. Dale Hurd, CBN News in Southampton, England.
Still ahead, what can be done for those recovering from alcoholism and drug abuse? You're going to see how one woman is helping other women recover after the Lord led her out of alcoholism. We're going to hear from her right after this. Life can be difficult, and many people turn to drugs and alcohol to cope. On this week's Healthy Living, Britt Brandon discusses how she's helping women recover after Jesus led her out of alcoholism years ago, brought on by an abusive marriage and experiencing homelessness with 3 small children. Take a look.
So your book is really sort of geared towards women who are in recovery. How does a person stay in recovery? You'd think that, just getting clean from drugs and alcohol is the victory, but really staying in recovery is a very, very big deal. It's very hard. A lot of people relapse. Talk about, how you help women stay in recovery.
Staying in recovery I'm so glad you bring this up, because I think people do believe that once you make it, you're all set, and that's the hardest part. But it's really, we're surrounded by drugs and alcohol. And it is so just widely accepted by society that when we go out to dinner, we're surrounded by alcohol. I have a friend of mine who just moved into a new home, and her neighbor brought her a bottle of alcohol, and she's in recovery, and she was blown away by, alcohol and pharmaceuticals and drugs are just, it's so commonplace. And it's not until you're in that abstinence phase that you realize how prominent it is. And so we have so much that's available to us in terms of being able to relapse. It's just constantly available. So we have to make our recovery a priority. So we have to take daily steps in order to be able to optimize how we feel, so that we're not being triggered emotionally and, on the edge. So sleep becomes such an important priority. We all know how terrible it can be, how hard it is to get through the day when we're running on low sleep. And same thing with food. We have to be nourishing our bodies so that we feel our best. And then with fitness, we have to be moving our bodies so that we are strong and have all of the physical benefits that we get from hormones that are released when we exercise. And with fellowship and fun, there's nothing better than being able to connect with people. And there's physical and mental and psychological and emotional benefits there as well. And then faith, we all know that when you believe in a higher power and you can surrender what your pain and discomfort is, it's incredible how you can have that sense of relief.
And, you talk about your own situation, being a single mom. So many women who are in recovery are single moms. So they're working, they're taking care of the kids. And you start talking about things like exercise and getting lots of sleep and eating healthy, which, as we all know, takes a lot of preparation and time. A lot of women feel sort of guilty for spending so much time on themselves, and they just feel like that's sort of a selfish thing to do. This idea of self-care, going to a, class or exercising, things like that. What's your response to that?
Another great point. And I actually talk in depth about this in the book, because we kind of see self-care as, it's kind of silly, but sinful. It's like we either don't deserve it, or we're taking that time away from the people who need it. And as somebody who, as a single mom, all of my attention was on my children, especially after the trauma that they had been exposed to. I wanted nothing more than to just focus on what their needs were and that their needs were being met. And then when I realized that self-care didn't mean that I was going on a vacation or to a spa for extensive, hours at a time. It can be as simple as taking a couple minutes to just breathe. I have a girlfriend who teaches breath work, and it is incredible how much you can achieve just in terms of being able to, find space and quiet your mind for just a couple of minutes and focus on your breath. And then, anything from reading a book to journaling to going for a walk and just being mindful of your surroundings. Those things can qualify as self-care, and they really do help significantly. And so it's all about changing not only the mindset about what qualifies as self-care, but also in really putting ourselves in a place of we have to give ourselves grace and forgiveness about the past in order to be able to feel that we are deserving of care for ourselves too.
And you can hear more about getting clean and sober and staying in recovery on this week's edition of Healthy Living. You can find it today on the CBN News Channel. It begins at 2:30 and 8:30 Eastern Time. You can also see it on the CBN News app, or you can watch it on YouTube. Coming up, worship and salvation's coming to another major college campus right here in the United States. We're going to bring you this story when we come back.
Download the CBN News app, 24/7 news from a Christian perspective at home or on the road. One place for all of your news. Breaking news alerts. Set daily prayer goals and pray for news stories. Read the most important news and watch CBN News Channel live. CBN News, because truth matters. Go to cbnnewsapp.com to get the app today.
More than 4,500 students gathered to hear the gospel and to be transformed at a Unite Us event last week at Purdue University. Nearly half of those who attended proclaimed Jesus as their Savior, and some took part in water baptisms following it. The group writing on Instagram, "From the moment we stepped on campus, we knew God was going to move in a special way tonight." Time now for your Tuesday Tweetable. This is a message I pray blesses you, and you will bless others by posting, tweeting, and sharing it in your circles of influence. Sooner or later, circumstances are going to change, but in the change, know this thing doesn't change. God is always working it out for your good. He won't fail, He won't leave you, and He won't fail. With that word, I encourage you to make this a terrific Tuesday. That will do it for this edition of CBN NewsWatch. You can always find more of our news programs on the CBN News Channel at any time, as well as online. That is cbnnews.com. Take a moment. Let us know what you think about the stories you've seen here today. You can email us, newswatch@cbn.com. You can also reach out and touch us on Facebook, Instagram, and X, formerly known as Twitter. We look forward to seeing you right back here same time tomorrow. Goodbye and God bless.